Great to see you all. I see several familiar names, but I believe a lot of those present would be new to our webinars. We'll just wait. Start. I see people from US, Israel, India, Chile, Spain, Greece. Yes, hello Sanjay, hello Guillermo. Dubai, Cyprus, hello John. Estonia, London. Hello Muhammad, yes. Isaac, US, Ireland. It's a pleasure to have you here likewise. And Guam as well. Wow. Morning to Alabama as well. RSA, Cloud Prisma, Denmark. Yes, hello Prakash.
Meta.
Yeah, just a few more minutes and then we'll... Hello Himanshu.
Have some of our interns on the call too.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think this will be quite an interesting event for everybody. So we have a total of, oh, Jaspreet, yes, hello, great to see you. I think that most people have joined at this point, so we can, I suppose we can start. Hello again, everyone. I see a lot of people who I suppose are new to our webinars. We have quite an interesting topic today, and it's our pleasure and our honor to have with us Mr. Larry Cameron, CISO of the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative. Hello, Larry. And we will be covering a number of very interesting topics. This will include dark web investigations, investigations into CSAM and human trafficking incidents, of course, and the history of dark web marketplaces, how what are the usual things investigators do when digging into those, and also a bit about tracing missing people possibly. So just to introduce us, we are Social Links, one of the leading OSINT vendors at this moment. My name is Ivan Kravtsov. I'm an OSINT analyst here. We provide SaaS and on-premise software for several segments for law enforcement, cybersecurity, corporate security, and private investigators. Our flagship product works on the base of Maltego and i2, formerly known as IBM i2. And this event is a part of a series of webinars that we host with industry experts from various different fields that all have some relation to OSINT in one form or another. And we will also be covering how our solution can be used in working with data investigations of this kind. But of course, first of all, we're going to listen to Larry, and we're going to have sort of a live discussion about what the ATII is mostly engaged in doing. So Larry, word to you.
Hey everyone, name is Larry Cameron. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer over at the Anti-Human Trafficking Intelligence Initiative. So publicly, we promote corporate social responsibility and economic social governance in financial institutions. We provide them with various things like data sets or red flag typologies, training, and we help them implement anti-human trafficking programs. Privately, we have a task force. We do a range of things. We do digital forensics or blockchain forensics, cryptocurrency asset tracing, open source intelligence. We support law enforcement with tools, data, and investigative support. So we do this local, state, federal, and international law enforcement. Also speak at quite a few conferences. Last year, I was able to do 46 of them, and I think I'm going to break that record this year. We're going to talk quite a bit about Project Hades, which is a dark web intelligence platform. Now, currently, Project Hades has around 35 to 40,000 child abuse sites that are dedicated toward the exploitation of children. One of our focuses is to clean that up and to get that data out there through multiple means. One of them is cryptocurrency exchanges and blockchain forensics companies. We provide the data to them in order to scrub against their client base so they can kind of get these matches. Then what happens, they get their accounts frozen or suspicious activity reports filled out and sent to FinCEN or FinTrack in Canada. And do you want me to go through the slides now, or?
Yes, certainly. Please go on.
Okay. Share my screen here. Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So Project Hades, again, delivering darknet secrets. We provide this data and access to a lot of our sponsors, whether it be law enforcement, financial institutions, or various corporations. Hades was created so that people are not exposed to the risks of the dark web. So even getting routed out to malicious exit node, they can do traffic injection and infect you with malware. So that's just kind of random risk that you can come across. Now here's our dashboard. So what we do, we ingest onion sites, and then we go out with our AI and we collect all this different data on there. It could be email addresses or cryptocurrency addresses, things like SSH keys or favorite icons. And we collect all this in order to do link analysis so we can kind of see who's tied together. Now we have a search in our platform, so you can search basically any keyword. Again, I search for pedo here, and there's almost 10,000 results, quite a few pages of this data. So as you can see from the title, all these are child abuse sites, anywhere from Pedo Hub to Hard Pedo Forum. It's really easy to find this type of content in our platform, but at no point in this are you ever exposed to this material. We have 11 ways to validate child abuse material without ever seeing a picture. So we can do pivoting and analysis on any one of our selectors or artifacts that we get in the platform. For instance, an email address, you just need to click on it or search for it, and you can see all the different sites that it's linked to. That would mean that would be on the front page at the time. So in the future, we're going to open it up to multi-page crawling, but for right now, we're only doing the front page. And I'll give you some examples of these different things, how we pivot and they benefited us. So we do keyword analysis. These are some of the ways that we can validate that it's CSAM. So we do all the website description, the keywords, the content keywords, even the title or vanity URLs. But we also take screenshots of the pages, but we don't render the pictures. So that way you can kind of have a view of the website and see what it's all about. And now the categories, we use NLP. So we have different keyword lists that go out and auto classify these sites based on the keywords on the pages. You can also leave notes. That's mainly for deconfliction and for people to work together on taking down these sites. There's also tags. So this is more of a manual process where Once you've validated the type of content, then you tag it manually. So this is what we'll be using in our API in the future. But right now it's just the auto classifications. So we can also collect different artifacts. So in this example, it's Google Analytics. So Google Analytics, you have to sign up on Google, you have to generate the code, and then you put it in your website in order to track the demographics. So on the left here, you'll see all the dark websites that particular one's tied to. But on the right, we actually do a reverse lookup and see where it's found on the internet. So some of these infrastructure might overlap. And what I mean by that is the one on the left, the server could actually be on the right, or it could just be different infrastructure. Yeah, you never really know until you dig into it more. Same thing with SSH keys. They're used for authentication. So if you want to host a whole bunch of servers in Azure or AWS, you connect to them, you authenticate via SSH, and then boom, you can run commands and administer the servers. So on the left here, there's plenty of sites. There's cocaine, hackers, drugs, and there's also a PETA one. You can drill down into any one of those by clicking on them. Right here on the right-hand side, we've checked these IP addresses and we can see that that same SSH key is used on them. So same thing with the Google Analytics, where some of them may overlap. So you might be able to easily seize that server, get it shut down. But you know, in reality, all this infrastructure is related to the same administrator. And instead of searching by pictures, you can actually search by a hash. So in this particular instance, there's 189 sites that this particular picture is on. So we know that this one's related to child abuse. So we can use this for to target re-victimization. So if somebody was rescued and you know, their picture's still all over the dark web and you want to target those, all you need to do is pivot on that hash and you can see all the sites that it's listed on. And this helps you kind of uncover more child abuse sites without actually going to the site. And you can also get EXIF data. So not only do we get the MD5, SHA-1, and SHA-56 hashes, we also get EXIF data, which is picture metadata. Sometimes you can get things like author or camera serial number, or even GPS coordinates. This helps with an investigation. JavaScript payment widgets. We were able to find a specific script in a page that was paybutton.js, that it's actually on 10,600 sites now. And then upon going to that site, you can see no KYC documentation required, get set up in 5 minutes. So literally this is 5% of the sites that we have ingested. Over 10,000 sites use this payment method. We can do link analysis. So go on any page, we can generate a little graph and you can see how the Bitcoin, the email address, and everything links together. Same with their cryptocurrency dashboard. So currently we collect Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, and Dogecoin. We're going to be adding more soon, like Litecoin. But we integrate with over a dozen different blockchain forensics and analytics providers. So in order to investigate cryptocurrency, when you're on a dark website and you see a cryptocurrency address there, you just need to click a button and it's going to open up directly in any one of these applications that you use. Some of them even free or open source type. But these are all our partners and our sponsors. There's even another page of them. So again, doesn't matter which one you use. If you use it, it's on the list. You can just click on it. It's going to open up directly into that page for the crypto address. Also, there's other techniques that we mimic, advanced investigative techniques. So welcome to video, IRSCI, they found an IP address in a web page. Now, what they did, they submitted a subpoena in order to get the subscriber info. Now, once they did that, they got the address, they went and booted down the door, they seized the server, and it was just a silly webmaster mistake by putting the IP address hard-coded to the server IP. So we automate these kind of techniques. So now we're collecting all these IP addresses. And then we put them on a map. And the example right there, you can see there's an IP address, a dark website, and the infrastructure organization that IP is owned by. So we like to automate these techniques because we know they work. We can also do more things like advanced location intelligence, where we can do geofences, and we can actually find heat maps of other devices. So, you know, if an IP address is hard coded in, we can target that IP address, we can find the location it's at, we can start pivoting on devices where we could potentially rescue a child in that scenario. We also have a Maltego transform. I'm going to do an example of that and see where you can just look up an email. You can find out all the sites it's on, and then you can check those sites to see what types of information or evidence that they contain, like Bitcoin addresses or other email addresses, and you can start building out that network. So fairly simple with Maltego. We also have an API, which is what the Maltego transform is built on. And we also have several integrations other than Maltego, and there's some upcoming ones that we're working on right now or in talks with. So look out for these in 2022, and you'll probably see them all. We also do data modeling with our data. So not just our Hades data and our crypto data and our IP data and different location and breach data. We also use forensics data and other financial data to try to find links and automate these procedures. Other than that, we have a dark webathon sprint coming up where people get access to Hades in order to investigate some of these crimes. We'll have a hash challenge, an email challenge, and cryptocurrency challenge. So go to our website, followmoneyfightslavery.org/darkwebathon and sign up.
Yeah, Larry, quick question, if you don't mind. There are some that we already have in the chat. First of all, in your observations, what would be the main differences between the techniques that law enforcement use when investigating such incidents and the ones that you use? And what are the limitations that law enforcement agencies usually face?
So law enforcement, there's usually big training gaps. So for one, law enforcement is reactive. Okay, so they have to get a report. They have to escalate it usually to the correct department. Then there's the training gaps because they don't all have dark web experience or blockchain forensics experience. So some of these investigations can take months or years. So what we try to do, we try to automate them. We know the technique that works. So some law enforcement, they can't use the location intelligence due to privacy reasons. But if we suspect, abuse of a child, then that gives us enough justification to use that. Yeah, it's mainly the training gaps. So we do provide investigative support and also training to law enforcement to use some of these techniques. But again, it's more reactive and not proactive. We like to do this in bulk. So, 1 week there was 78 cases of cryptocurrency that I reported that were involved in the sale of child abuse material. So one thing, the crypto exchanges, they filled out a SAR, and law enforcement were submitting those by, like, the subpoenas by the next business day. Now this is pretty good response time. Even me, when I go to law enforcement, again, there's jurisdictional issues, there's other problems, but it seems that the exchanges have some really good contacts, that they've generated these relationships over time, that probably have the proper training in order to do this. So it's all in the way that it's reported, I find, that makes the big difference.
And what would be most commonly the background for people working at ATII? I imagine quite a bit of them would be coming from a strong informational security field kind of background, or what would
Yeah,
that?
there's a lot of cyber. There's some law enforcement. There's compliance folks. There's open source intelligence people, digital forensics, blockchain forensics, people from exchanges or Bitcoin ATMs or blockchain forensics companies, advocates, military as well.
Hmm. Okay, and just one more question before you carry on with the graph. There was a question about Monero here. There's this whole perception of Monero being hard, everything that is done with Monero being harder to trace, obviously, than Bitcoin, and a similar thing for Zcash. What are your observations on those? Why is it considered so, and is it really so? And
Those are privacy coins, really. I mean, if I want to look up a Monero address, it's not going to give me any transactional info. So it's really difficult in order to do this. What you can do is pivot on those Monero addresses, find the other sites that they're also linked to, and then try to get the other selectors. So you can try to build out that network, because nobody's going to just post a Monero address on their site, because people could send money to that. We only do the front page, so it's not like we're drilling down into each page just to find any remnants of it. We're doing link analysis. So if you pivot and then find an email address, and then you perform open source intelligence on that, and you also do some lookups in various applications or breach data, you can find their accounts. Then you can get subpoenas to those accounts. You can find IP addresses, subscriber info, and then boot down the door and arrest them. It only takes one little mistake. That's what I find. We're digging and digging and digging to try to find that little piece of evidence that can blow open the case. And 9 times out of 10, they make that mistake. There's just investigation. I think, shall we do some Maltego now?
I suppose so. That would be very interesting.
Okay, I got a few email addresses here. But this is, so essentially, when you're looking at Hades data, it's always the onion that's the top level. So if you have an onion address, there's pieces of evidence. It could be artifact or select or whatever you want to call it below that. So we're taking this piece of evidence that we find in an onion site. We want to see where it is. So in this particular case, there's 21 different sites that this email address is on. So we can, find the categories. So the automated NLP, we can find the images on the site that won't show us the images, or linked sites, selectors, website title. I usually grab all of them. So I'm going to run all 61 of these sites through right now. What we're doing is we're building out this network to try to find different digital breadcrumbs that help us de-anonymize people on the dark web. If we zoom out, we can see it's building out these 61 sites pretty quick. You can see there's Bitcoin, Monero, website titles, email addresses. I like the email addresses. They sometimes provide the best information when you're looking them up. You can select all of these, and you can sort them, and you can view in the side here if you're looking for something in specific. So favorite icons, these are all Monero addresses. You can select all these. If you want to see where else these Monero addresses are used, just run them through. Tons of sites. You'll notice a lot of these sites start with video CP. So as in child porn, which is not the correct terminology. It should be child sexual abuse material. But you can see tons of different Bitcoin addresses that are used on this site, on these sites. So you could probably run all of these Bitcoin addresses through and find different evidence. And here's the pictures. So if I wanted jailbait teens, I double click on that. So I can see it's on all these sites, all the links to it. So they probably reuse it quite a bit. But you can see the SHA-1, SHA-256, the MD5 hash. You can actually, here's the project Hades URL if you wanted to go into the console and view it. But you can see all these different pictures. You can see all of them except for one of them have the same title. So jailbait, PTC, OPVA, which is Onion Pedo Video Archive. There's so many acronyms you're going to find. And yeah, so this is essentially just building out that network. So you can see it gets pretty large, and this is only from an email address. And I mean, you can continue to build out this network. So speaking of OPVA, we have another one here. And this is just an email address we're working with. We're going to find out, well, what sites is this on? Oh. So this one's on even more. So last one was on 61 sites. This is on 155. So normally what we're finding, the child abuse stuff, it's not really on the marketplaces that sell drugs or weapons. Why? Because they don't want to become a target. So if you're dealing with child abuse stuff, you're more likely to get targeted by law enforcement. And they kind of want to avoid that. So they keep the material off the major markets. They create their own markets. As you can see, this one's going to get pretty big. It's about 50% done. And even if you use the console, it would take a while to actually go through all these and start jotting down the evidence and creating spreadsheets. But as you can see, they use the pictures a lot. And you can actually run these through different hash databases. So I've ran all the data for pictures from Hades through Project Vic. And there was only 2 matches. Now, Project Vic, it requires 3 validations of the data. But if I get this ran through NCMEC, I'm able to find, several hundred matches. But there's tens of thousands of pictures. So what does this mean, really? It means that we're finding a lot of net new content that has never been discovered before. So and that means there still could be a kid out there being exploited, not known by law enforcement. Really, we need to get these pictures classified so that, there's at least we know that there's an investigation open on them. And as you can see, all the pictures, this is just from one email address. I mean, if you're able to go through all those pictures and get them classified, there's probably several investigations that can be opened, like potentially children that can be rescued. I mean, it's really easy to do blockchain forensics and in order to de-anonymize people. It's the KYC data. So what are you going to get when you subpoena a crypto exchange? You're going to get the passport or driver's license, going to get the address, phone number, email, IP address, list of their assets, all their transactions. You can potentially uncover multiple other networks just by investigating this one person. As you can see, again, what you can get from one email address is a vast amount of data so that you can target. I can do an SSH key now. How are we looking for time?
We have plenty of time.
Perfect. So run an SSH key through. Now what this is telling me is that this SSH key is used to administer these servers. And I did this as an example in the presentation. So you got your cocaine, you got your guns, you got your hackers, you got your pedo. So we can run all these through at the same time in order to, instead of just targeting one, because what you're gonna find is that people make a lot more mistakes when they're not dealing with child abuse material. So you'll start finding more email addresses and more Bitcoin addresses and more digital breadcrumbs that's going to help you put an identity to this person. So as you can see, this little red orange dot right here, that's the SSH key. So it links all these servers together by the same administrator in one way or another. So we can then start looking at the evidence. So let's say Bitcoin. I want to see if there's any other sites linked to those Bitcoin, and there was. What about the email addresses? Let's see. We're there, and we're only using Hades data right now. So we're not going in all the other 50 APIs, 70 APIs available by Maltego and, you know, enriching this. We're just using Hades data.
But that is quite impressive in of itself, amazing, I would say.
Yeah, trick is you want to get all the evidence from the page you can. Now, even if we wanted to add a piece of evidence, all we need to do is add it to our automation. And next time that they're scraped, it's going to pull in all that other data. So Litecoin, if it's found. So as you can see, some of these can get pretty big, detailed. Again, you see the titles, access to 10 plus terabytes of child material, child porn at dnmx.org. I mean, there's probably run this through again, and you can start targeting. And as you can see, you can keep on drilling down into these. But generally, honey, jail, young, little, mom, dog, teen. Like these are all child abuse ones. I know because I looked at them before. You can tell by the titles or the keywords. But yeah, as you can see, tons of stuff. You can even see the scripts. And I'll show you a good one with a script too. I'll do a crypto address. Now you can build out these networks from any selector or artifact. It's fairly straightforward and easy. Oops. Where's my... Where are my icons? Bitcoin. Hold on, let's see if I can copy one. Usually paste the ones. So I'll show you one with a Bitcoin address and a script. So all I'm doing is running through the Bitcoin address. I'm finding the sites that it's on. Right now, it's only 4 sites, but we're still able to link those sites based on the crypto address. Same as we can do with an email or an SSH key or anything else. So that one's a scam. I know that one. Young and cute. Pedo Hub. Now you see this script right here. This script is something I found that's unique to Pedo Hub. So naqs.js. So if you actually want to run that, you can run the script through and you can see all the other sites. Pedo Hub, Red Room, P Hub. So what we're doing here is we're kind of uncovering different sites in this network that don't follow the same format usually as PedoHub. But we know that they're using this script and it's unique to them and they're all child abuse.
Are you, this is all Onion. So are you currently working on only within the Onion space, or do you sometimes investigate into something related to I2P or Freenet or the like? Yeah, Lara, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, what we like to do, we like to focus on one thing at a time and get really, really good at it. You know, even better than some competitors. I mean, child abuse and human trafficking, it's not really competition, but there are some companies that, you know, are more focused on, you know, competition and making money and trying to be the best, that they spread out too much. They do a little of this and a little of that and a little of that, but we're focusing right now on just Tor. So probably next year, we're going to pick another topic and keep this going, but we're going to try to become the best in that. And that's not for the competition aspect. It's because we really want to make an impact. A lot of these little focuses, they don't really help much. And we can, you know, eventually, if we get funding, we can get these APIs and we can enrich our data with theirs. That way we can investigate it further and kind of branch out into the different stuff like social media too. There's a lot of deep web programs out there, you know, some of which would become our partners, and they'd let us do this in order to support law enforcement with investigations.
And in terms of geography, are you mostly focused on the United States and Canada, or do you operate worldwide?
So last year, I was able to train law enforcement in about 40 countries. We did data collection, 121 countries, and dark web data, it's global. So we don't know where a lot of these are from, but we focus on Earth. You know, we don't see too much trafficking on Mars or the moon yet. So, you know, it's basically every country would focus on. If law enforcement from any country came to us, needed assistance, we'd help them. So yeah, as you can see here, Magic CP, Teen Planet, they even focus on stolen PayPal accounts. There's a lot of PayPal stuff in here. There's about 36,000 sites, almost as much as the child abuse, but you can even see some of these welcome to NGINX. So you know what type of server they have, Screen Girls. You can get some pretty crazy stuff. And this is just out of a script where you find the majority of your data. I'll do one more for SSH keys. I think this one was a pretty large one. But let's see how many sites this one's connected to. 203 sites with the same SSH key. So the same administrator controls 200 of these sites. This might take a little bit. All we need to do is run it through. And what ATIIs can do, I mean, you could be looking for an email address or a crypto address or pretty much any selector and build out that network. It's more of a time saver as well. So another reason why we created Hades was because we got all these silos of data from our different partners. That's great. We can investigate that ourselves and work with law enforcement, but it gets pretty, you know, significant amount of data where you can't get through it all. So, and besides, it's kind of like their livelihood. They make their money on this data, so we can't share it with our other partners. So this is Hades. It allows us to get it to the crypto exchanges. It allows us to get it to the blockchain forensics, not one, but, you know, a dozen. So if there's, let's say, Binance uses CipherTrace, well, Binance has 14 million users or more last time I checked last year. So collectively, you're screening hundreds of millions of users against our data. Do they have dark web exposure? Yes or no?
Yes, it actually does seem to pose quite of a challenge for major exchanges for Binance to fully implement KYC policies. And another.
When it's your own data, you can share it freely.
Mhm. And does it often happen that you pivot into the Clearweb and specifically mainstream social media? I've seen you have Social Links Pro available as well, or
Yeah.
not quite often.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Larry, I think we can't hear you now.
Lots of times, Matt, our director of investigations and intelligence. Yes, sorry, my connection was unstable because of running them all through. Yeah, he loves Hades data because he always finds these links on the Clearweb email addresses, I find. So you can start targeting these email addresses. You're going to find a lot of the times there is no data because people who are messing around on the dark web don't like to mix it with the clear web. They just create a separate email address. But there's sometimes you'll find them in breach data or find them in social links, or you can pivot on the username, or the cryptocurrency. You can get law enforcement involved, get the subpoenas or warrants or production orders, depends which country you're in. But there's a lot of times we go from the dark web to the public internet. Same with the SSH keys and Google Analytics. You're pivoting from the dark web to the public internet, so because it's much easier to investigate. The domains are really easy to investigate when compared to onion addresses. As you can see, this 200 sites, and this is only direct data. So I mean, if you want to check out the little different graphs, I mean, it gets pretty crazy when you drill down into it. All these different sites and so I could go out one hop with all of this data. They probably had these ones compromised, so they switched to other ones. All right. Is that good for examples?
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing, Larry. Thank you. I think we can have a few questions. The first one would be from my side, based on your experience. What would be the most common socio-cultural, socio-economic background of a person engaged in either human trafficking crimes or CSAM crimes? Would it be the same as, well, for instance, people that run dark web marketplaces? They tend to have. There is an opinion that it's more of a white collar crime. So, for example, Alexander Kazes, who has been running Alphabet, yeah, which was 10 times the size of Silk Road, came from quite a strong computer science background, and was for some time running, or at least what I remember, it was a legitimate software company. Well, obviously you do need to have a strong background to build those things, to maintain those things, to keep them secure, and with the understanding of business processes as well. Would it be similar with the people that you're investigating into, or would it be a bit different?
Yeah, so probably half that you're going to come across, they could actually be honeypots or people that just want to steal the pedos' money. The other half, you're going to find a lot of them are really technical and, you know, little more technical because they're targeted a lot. A lot of these people try to hack them and take them down, etc. Plus, you have law enforcement constantly targeting them. So you're going to have to be a bit more technical in order to run these. I find. Anyway.
Okay. And there are questions. Yes, Daniel, we're going to share the recording as it is quite important information. And Max is asking, if someone in a non-law enforcement investigative role wants to help, is there any way they can contribute information from their own investigations? And is the transform set, which is also the question from another person previously, only available commercially or also for volunteering individuals? All right. Larry, we seem to have lost you. Yes, while Larry's frozen, he's coming back to us. There's a poll running now about which type of organization do you work at, how much do you encounter human trafficking cases or anything related, or maybe CSAM in your work? Do you use OSINT tools? Would you be interested to know more about the Cell Pro, and does your company have a dedicated budget for OSINT solutions such as HADES or SL Pro this year? We'll wait for Larry for a few more minutes for a brief Q&A, and then we'll go on into the next section. Also about the questions about the transforms Larry was showing, it does seem to be proprietary. Yeah. Oh, Larry, you're back. Great.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got booted.
Yeah, we well, welcome back. So we've launched a bit of a poll here, and there's a question about whether people can contribute data from their own investigations to you, and is HADES only available commercially?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna, what benefits Hades is the location of new Onion sites. Once we add the Onion site, then it automates the rest. And then your data will then be available to law enforcement and investigators and OSINT people. I mean, if you want to help with Hades, come to the Dark Webathon in May. Again, followmoneyfightslavery.org/darkwebathon. You'll be able to investigate these particular things and help attribute them. Now, what I mean by attribute is, you know, this will give you a list of them. You go and check and validate them and assign a tag. So is it CSAM, yes or no? And this Dark Webathon, we're going to focus only on CSAM. There's other stuff, drugs and weapons and, you know, whatever, but that's not what we're trying to clean up. It's not our focus. There may be other people that use Hades that look at other stuff, but, you know, our top priority and only priority really is the amount of child abuse on there. So definitely law enforcement, we give pending a signing of an MOU, we usually give a complimentary license. So if there's any law enforcement agencies, you can email me, larry@followmoneyfightslavery.org, and we'll get you set up. You can also, we don't do much, but you can donate. That helps us give law enforcement more training and resources, and it helps with our travel. So we're a nonprofit. Mainly we're collecting money in order to pay for flights and other stuff to go and train law enforcement. They don't always have a budget, so that's why we're kind of, you know, ramping up there. Yes, I'll put my email there.
Have you ever encountered some kind of threats related to the things that you do in your career?
I'm pretty low key,
Uh,
but no, there hasn't really been too many threats.
mhm.
I've been
Okay,
lucky.
yeah, certainly. And one more question, then we'll go on into the next stuff. Where do you think the space commonly known as the dark web is going in 2022? So as a phenomenon, I mean. So the communities, the forums, the marketplaces, all the law enforcement activities and the activities of people such as yourself into it. What can we expect to see in maybe several years from now? At least in the onion space, as an example.
Well, with the bug fixes and everything, they're gonna start closing some exploits and figuring out ways in order to make it actually private. Because the dark web isn't all bad. It's there's censorship. A lot of countries, they don't allow free speech and everything, and you know, reporters are kidnapped, they're tortured, and they're killed. Like that's what happens when you speak out against some governments. So, the dark web's there in order to keep people safe, but it's also there, and there's a lot of illicit activity there. So you kind of gotta weigh your options.
It's
I mean,
always
if you're able to target all the child abuse and clean it up, just at least that, then I'd say we've done our jobs.
it's always a stick of two ends, and very similar thing with cryptocurrencies. Well, in general, as a phenomenon, I mean, it has the blockchain technology, not just cryptocurrency specifically, but them as well, something that is absolutely transformational for society, but something which is one of the basic prerequisites. So, I mean, this kind of technology, the other one being the Tor project that makes possible communication and facilitation of morally questionable commerce of that kind. So we're going to go a bit more into that. So as you have mentioned, Larry, previously, it does take usually just one mistake for those people, and you would expect them to be very careful, of course. What we have here is some sample data about mostly dark web vendors. We won't spend a lot of time within Maltego here. I'll just enrich some of those aliases. Within Maltego, there's a very good thing which is called machines. And it actually has a lot of capabilities that many users don't really use. Machines, it's very easy to build your own. So transforms, they make one call into a specific source and get you a specific kind of data. And machines are automated scripts that execute those in a specific sequence. It can be very iterational. So if you follow the whole logic, for example, you get the user account from the alias, and then you would have to apply other methods to get the posts and then extract the topics from those. And this lets you automate repetitive scenarios. And the aliases that we see here, Gudu and Gudu team, usually, how do dark web marketplaces get closed down? This is in most, it's one of the two. It's an exit scam, a joint law enforcement operation, and well, the one can be kind of a mask for the other. And this is the Berlusconi marketplace, which was closed down in 2019 by the Italian Guardia di Finanza. And we can see here from the extracted properties of the shipping locations that that the merchandise was shipped from Italy worldwide. There's a bit of a difference between what kind of dark web functionality Hades has and the kind that we have. So Larry, if I understood correctly, how it all came to you developing your Maltego transforms, you were doing investigations and there were obviously things that it made sense to automate. And then you started using Maltego, and then you built a number of methods and put it all in a single set, and now it's available. So it's initially tailored toward investigating human trafficking and CSAM.
Yeah, so Adam Maxwell, our engineer, he's the one that designed Hades and built it, like all the Maltego transform and everything. So he's the genius behind it, but it functions the same as the console when pivoting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but the graph-based interface does make analysis somewhat more possible, and sometimes makes the data more comprehensive.
100 times more.
Yeah, and what we have here, we have the products, we have the PGP open key that is used by 2 accounts on 2 different sources. And this is obviously, this is a bit different in terms of Hades, as mentioned, more focused initially on the kind of operations that ATII has. SL Pro dark web functionality is much more tailored towards law enforcement customers, because they're the people that encounter the need for this much more than other segments. So in terms of digital identifiers, as we call them, or as the ATII team likes to call them, selectors, this email has belonged to Mr. Alexander Kazis of Alphabay, which we've mentioned quite briefly. And it was featured in a number of support emails for newly registered members on Alphabay, which was one of the things that got the attention of law enforcement and let them kind of ascertain his identity, well, the supposed identity, faster, because he made a number of posts on, I believe it was pickup artistry related forums 10 years prior to have established Alphabay, with that specific email, which contained his first name, his year of birth, and the first word, kind of lets you characterize or have a partial characteristic of the personality of this individual. And the alias itself was Alpha02, and hence the marketplace name Alphabay. So we have a number of ISC nodes here. ISC stands for Identity Search Engine. Those mostly come from scraped data breaches. We can make an extraction from those. See what else it gives us. It gives us the name Alexander Kazis, an IP address, and also we have a number of emails with similar passwords. Also pimp alex91, 2 of those, and Alexander Kazis at different domains, as well as a Skype account and the fact of an Instagram account being connected to that email. So that's and after that, there was a large-scale joint law enforcement operation, which is usually a requirement. It is due to those kinds of actors, due to those kinds of criminals, due to this whole industry being largely trans-border, quite international. The ones participating were the FBI, Europol, the Thai police, as Mr. Kazis was residing in Thailand, and also in a joint event. This was corresponding with the takedown of the Hansa market, which became a honeypot prior to the arrest of Alexander Kazis as a result of a staged car incident where he left his house and was arrested by Thai police officers nearby. And people started flocking to the second largest marketplace, and their data was collected during several weeks. by the Dutch National Police, and then with Hansa Marketplace also being closed down quite quickly after that. But of course, it does have a similar logic, I mean, gathering this kind of data, but of course, a bit different than human trafficking and CSAM. Another example that we have here is Mr. Gal Valerius. I think we can switch to switch to cloud-based view here, who was a senior moderator of the Dream Marketplace, also closed down some time after that, which was also quite large. And there was the cryptocurrency element there, which is very important in this kind of investigations. So there was a tip jar at this address, a vanity address beginning with 1DREAM, with the user by the alias Oxymonster, which was afterwards ascertained to be Mr. Valerius, having left this as a tip jar, and then the Bitcoin that arrived to this address further went to a number of addresses, some of which we can see here, and law enforcement traced this to their account on localbitcoins.com, I believe. So something that we will also show here. Here it is, Valerius, lots of transactions, verified a number of years ago, number of reviews here. And those are the court materials about the tip jar and the aliases of the marketplace staff. And what is more interesting, I'd say, is another document that I encountered on Pastebin. So several people who called themselves anonymous dark web researchers published their own investigation into somebody who they suspected to be behind the alias of Speed Stepper. So the owner of the marketplace, Mr. Valerius, was only a senior moderator. And there's quite a bit of interesting stuff there. I don't know if that is true or not, but they seem to they pivoted initially from any request to Dream Market returning this IP, returning as a header for every request, this IP address and X forwarded for. And there's a number of digital identifiers here that could be enriched with industrial solutions such as this. But if this seems interesting, I can share the link also in the chat section. And for Mr. Gal Valerius, one IAC node we have here also has his Foursquare account. So when he was arrested, he was on his way from France, being a citizen of France, to a beard competition in the US. And then he was sentenced, but he pleaded guilty and cooperated with law enforcement then. So his sentence was a bit kind of lightened. And in terms of cryptocurrency, another example we can see here, it's in many instances, it's all about connecting the seemingly not interconnected things, and the wider the spectrum of the sources that you can cover, the ones that you have available, the better. And this is especially the case with Maltego, which has quite a bit of data providers available within it. So this is an example. What we used here was BitQuery. It's something similar to CipherTrace, but not exactly always investigation oriented. And there are a number of addresses here featured in an existing Bellingcat investigation into the Palestinian Al-Qassam group, which do have a lot of mentions in the Telegram space in Arabic here. And they transacted with one address that we have here in the center, which has also transacted with several of the addresses featured in the 2016 Bitfinex hack. And we can see, obviously, if we pivot from a phrase, quite a bit of negative sentiment on dark web sources. in the Vigilante forum, which is a very important thing to know about when working with this kind of data, and on Twitter, which is one of the two platforms where the crypto community is most active, the second being Telegram. Now, this address, as strange as that may seem, belongs to the Binance exchange. And there was the whole controversy between the CEO of Binance and the late Mr. John McAfee several years ago, where the latter has accused Binance of having been hacked and not disclosing this information to customers. And they have published, look, this is our address. You can go into the blockchain and see for yourself that everything is okay. But this does seem to point to the assumption that it can sometimes be a bit of a challenge for even major exchanges to fully implement KYC policies. Because if we look this address up using a simple search engine query, we will see quite a bit of negative sentiments on relevant threads on Reddit, on sources such as Bitcoin spam and check Bitcoin address, with some of them also using the supposed person who has scammed them, who has transacted with this address as well, of having connections to groups financing terrorist and extremist groups in Eastern Europe, which is quite interesting in of itself and the whole context of Binance. But in general, this is an example of interconnecting the stuff from a wide array of sources to form a more coherent picture, and making the links that could be not so obvious more kind of visible. So that would be all for our part. And I think we can have another brief Q&A session. I believe that a lot of you may have some additional questions for Larry, especially.
I was answering some of them privately.
Yeah.
There's still quite a bit to go through.
What are your plans? What are the ATII's plans for the future? So you've now built an integration with Maltego, not just on the commercial side. So what would you like to do? What would you like to accomplish in the next several years with your initiative?
Next several years, we'll be adding more stuff like other dark webs or deep web. We'll also be integrating multiple other APIs. We'll also be creating other platforms like Hades, but for the public internet specifically, mainly surrounding human trafficking. So, we currently have data sets. We do data collection, 121 countries. It's about 1 million rows of data on, the sale of sexual services. But, we provide that to financial institutions to integrate into their compliance programs. And what that does, it generates red flag. It triggers the enhanced due diligence process. It allows them to investigate with more context. So this could be a potential trafficking situation, because a lot of the times there's a lack of training, lack of human trafficking program, and it could be miscategorized. So, instead of having our data set and we build a platform, I think that's going to go a long way there. And the integration of deep web and enriching the data. We will be adding Hades data and other data dumps that we got from other similar providers in order to kind of fill in the gaps, but it'll be more of a law enforcement platform. But once we ingest data, we can enrich it with other APIs. So if we have a ton of email addresses in there, we can run it through, let's say, Social Links API, and it can enrich that data. So lots of fun stuff planned for the future. I mean, even the next 2 years is going to be crazy, but I can't imagine the next 5 years. I think it's going to make a real impact.
Yes, that certainly is. And Jason has a question. Do you find any particular exchanges to be more cooperative than other ones?
Ones that are cooperative, Binance, Coinbase, Gemini, Bittrex, Bitfinex, Paxful, even some of the Bitcoin ATMs. Let's see who else here. Those are some really good exchanges. They respond to subpoenas. That's the main thing. That's kind of what you need. If there's non-compliant exchanges that are not responding to law enforcement requests, then we have methods of dealing with that. They can get fined or sanctioned or shut down, or Visa, MasterCard will drop them, or you can only avoid that for so long, not being compliant. I mean, they're going to go after you, and it's pretty serious. It's just like a bank not responding to subpoenas. How long do you think before they get fined hundreds of millions of dollars, or shut down, or they're on no-fly lists? I mean, it's going to happen. So
it is, of course, with big, legitimate, respectable exchanges, but the whole cryptocurrency industry does seem to be, even now, because cryptocurrency as a phenomenon is quite new. I mean, in the historical landscape. So it is still kind of a Wild West environment. So in some sense, so even near respectable organizations such as exchanges. And we would have a question from the social links team on the product side. So when we develop new features, when we make plans to develop new features and develop new sources and ways of working with them, we usually try to rely on the experience of our customers and the kind of investigations that they have. We conduct in-depth interviews to understand that better. So just your opinion, actually including one of the examples that we've had from our side with Guy Valerius, the court document on Document Cloud, the indictment also contains mentions of them having analyzed the speech patterns, like the text patterns that he had on his social media, which was Twitter and Instagram, and in his dark web posts, which included a bit of French, which included quote marks and different things. So you mentioned that you use NLP. We're going to implement that quite soon. Do you think that dark web investigations is something where it's especially relevant? So analyzing speech patterns and so on.
Yeah, so we had psychological profiler go in some of these dark web forums, talk about CSAM, and the reports that came out of those were just, it makes you look at it with a whole new perspective. The stuff like psychological profiling and behavioral analysis, and even that's one of the techniques we use, is taking these strings of text, which seem pretty unique, and even doing open source intelligence on them. And you'd be surprised when we find matching text and it's like, oh, look, that username is the same, so you don't even have to target username, just target the text sometimes, and you'll be surprised what you find. And that's the type of mistakes we talk about all the time. Just one little slip up can lead to you getting caught. And, as for the cryptocurrency, it is the Wild West, but there's also compliance and regulation in there, and it's a open ledger. I mean, anybody can see what you're transacting. So
yeah, it is. So I don't know if I don't think there are that many people that have a perception of cryptocurrency being anonymous. So it's obviously more secure than well, for that kind of activities than Fiat, but still.
Well, cash, you can exchange cash. Bitcoin, it's written on a ledger. So even, hacks and different things that happened 5 years ago, with new attribution with these blockchain forensics companies, you really only need to look up the address and you're going to solve this cold case just like that. I mean, that's inevitable.
And for yes, actually, Discord was mentioned in the comments as being also a relevant platform for the crypto community. It's one of the sources we're going to be adding soon, and one of the things that was based on is we've done some research into several sources, so Discord and Steam included, and Steam.
Telegram.
Yeah, yes, and Telegram also. Steam we already have, but there seems to be, there's quite a bit of interesting stuff going on in there, and there does seem to be a fairly large amount of child grooming and things like that going on in Discord. So do you think that would something that could help you, for example, or law enforcement?
Oh, definitely. That's a great help. And I mean, it's not just specific platforms, it's every platform that has a chat functionality. If they can talk to your kids, they're going to talk to them, whether it's games, Roblox, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, every single platform. So the more platforms you get, the more useful it's going to be, because people can say, oh, well, this one's the worst, or this one's pretty bad, but it's all platforms. And that's where you need to come into the education for your kids. Don't meet anybody off the internet, set your privacy, don't even add them if they have a picture of your friend. I mean, that's still a risk. Make sure you're there with them and they tell you their ID.
And Jason in the chat is also saying about metaverse platforms like VRChat to be quite relevant soon. So for Discord and Steam, obviously, one thing that was interesting with Discord is that you mentioned Telegram, and it would be interesting to hear your opinion about Telegram relevance as well. But just due to the fact that as soon as it appeared, one of their selling points were them being more confidential and more secure than the other messengers popular at that time. So it was quickly populated with people from extremist groups, people from organized crime, and so on, which of course meant increased attention from law enforcement worldwide in general. And part of those people have migrated to Discord for their communications. So child grooming is not the kind of thing specific to it as well. But metaverse platforms do seem to be interesting as well. Do you and for Telegram, is it something that you encounter often in your practice?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Telegram, especially if you're looking for crypto addresses just being posted, or anything. There's a lot of grooming. There's a lot of CSAM channels on Telegram, even VR stuff. There's reports of kids getting gang raped in the VR world, and it's I mean, there's too much stuff going on in the VR world. It's not really protected or anything, and it's hard to police that. It's hard to do anything in regards to that.
And have you heard of hypnotist Sappho? Katerina is asking in the chat.
What is that?
Yeah. What is that? I don't think we have heard about it as well.
Let me Google it. Healing mind hypnosis. No. Let's do with like a hypnotist for the scam crypto platform transactions to legit trading platform using anonymous protocols. I heard that is a shadow record that discloses the holder's name, date of birth, identity, etc. Is there a way to unveil the shadow record to get the owner's identity? So that would probably be, you're talking about the travel rule. So Ninja. So the travel rule, I know some of our partners deal with it, but it's basically you need to know if somebody's sending from one exchange to another, then you need to know the sender and who's getting the funds in all of those records. So if they're audited or if it's subpoenaed, who'd they send that to, then you kind of need to know.
And yes, if that question was answered, Prakash is interested to know, have you come across cases that use NFTs to commit such crimes? And how do you profile criminals?
NFTs for those types of crimes. I mean, NFTs, a lot of that is just money laundering. There's a lot of fake NFTs. You're gonna notice. I didn't really see too much of it relating to child abuse or anything like that. And there was another question about Dark Webathon and being fairly new to OSINT. That should be fine. There's training provided the week before the Dark Webathon. So you get in, you learn about the Hades console, the Maltego transform. Some of our partners will provide applications. CipherTrace will be providing their blockchain forensics software. So, and hopefully Social Links will be in on that.
Yeah, we would be interested to participate, certainly.
Put them on the spot.
Yeah.
So you might get to use Social Links for investigating some of our dark web stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually thought about participating in something like that for a long time. I think this would be a good chance.
Awesome.
And yes, thank you, Prakash. And what else would you recommend for someone who has been in IT InfoSec for a long time, but is new to hunting, fighting CSAM?
So CSAM's a little risky on its own. You know, if you see it, don't screenshot it, don't save it, just report it right away. You can go to the NCMEC site, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and fill out a report there. That's probably your best bet. If not, find some group. You know, there's more than us. There's the Innocent Lives Foundation. There's other groups that deal with this. You know, they have systems to prevent you from being exposed to CSAM, same as us. And they also use our platform. A great organization. But yeah, you can either, we're a little short on people. So we're trying to get our volunteer program back up so that we can take on more volunteers in order to do this. But yeah, there's other organizations. Try to find a job in the field. Take a policing course. I mean, there's plenty of ways you can get into it, but you know, forewarning, be careful. Do not search out the material, even if you're Googling the keywords trying to find out. I mean, you can get flagged. So there's a lot of risk in just, you know, doing it. And definitely don't do the vigilante stuff. That causes hindrances to investigations and stuff. And, you know, more oftentimes than not, they already have a case open against them. If you're able to come across it, you know, sometimes for multiple years, they're just monitoring, waiting for them to slip up. But, you know, I've, you know, did forensics on people and reported them, got their door booted down 2 days later. But, you know, when speaking to law enforcement, like, yeah, we had a case open on this guy for 2 years. I was just like, 2 years? That's ridiculous. So, you know, all they need are these little reports because they're reactive. If they don't have enough evidence, they can't boot down the door. But, you know, you got to figure out ways to do that. Some people, it's semi-vigilante, but it's decoy accounts. So, I mean, set up decoys, tell them flat out, hey, I'm 13 years old. You know, if they don't care, they don't block you right away, that's something wrong. You
Yes,
know?
I've seen during, well, there was some interview with people from some American law enforcement that were telling about using those kind of practices, but that does sound pretty universal.
Yeah.
To what we do.
don't let them know you're onto them. Don't let them know, hey, I just tricked you. Don't let them know you're contacting police. But, you know, if you get enough evidence, there's some other ones as this other predator hunter group. So they were legally sound. They had pretty much a 100% conviction rate. But I was like, you know, tons of ways you can find them. You can even give them a cryptocurrency address. And they're like, nope, you can't do money. And I'm like, oh, okay. That makes total sense. You know, when you're enticing for pictures, you want money. So, you know, just they had a sound legal system where 100% conviction rate. Get the data, get a screenshot of you telling them their age, get the account info, get them making a pass at you and all that. Boom, they're done.
It does sound kind of similar to like a very large part of the basis for the existence of the private investigations into this industry, and also even the corporate investigations industry. So organizations such as Crawl, for instance. So law enforcement don't have the resources in terms of time and manpower to get their time and everything. And what you said, what you said about not engaging people, being careful about engaging people directly, it rings a bell a bit with a thing that Trace Labs in their CTF events, they prohibit participants to have any kind of direct engagement with any social media account, any artifact, any family member of the person that they are looking for. So that does kind of make sense. And I believe there's some, you have probably encountered a number of intersections of human trafficking and missing people investigations during your career.
Yeah, definitely. The decoy account works a little different. You have to engage these people, but the fact is they usually engage you. Like that's the thing. You have this little sock puppet account, a fake account. You have people messaging you. So that's where this legal basis, even if you reach out to them, even if you heard, well, this person's a pig, you know, and you reach out to them, that's still fine in this case when you're dealing with the like Trace Labs missing persons. I'm a senior judge over there. So, you know, you can't engage that because it's a missing persons case. Law enforcement is asking for assistance, and you can't just have the public reaching out and talking to these people. It's going to drive them mad. It's going to cause problems with the investigations. The family will probably get ticked off at law enforcement. You don't want to cause issues. You know, if you got a good process, keep it. But you know, it's a little different for the decoy accounts. You can engage these people and you can collect evidence, and then you can report it to law enforcement. You don't even have to meet them. You know, they could be in another country and you still get this to work and get them arrested.
And speaking of countries, if we're talking about large, structured, organized crime groups specialized in human trafficking or specialized in several things, including human trafficking, in your observations, what would be the regions where they are most commonly based? What would be those? Like the macro regions geographically?
Yeah, I mean, certain regions that are bad, I've found were Philippines, ones like different third world, Cambodia, even different Middle Eastern countries where there's, you know, a lot of expats that go in there and there's not a lot of locals. I'm not gonna mention any, but you know, certain ones it's really bad. You know, even Russia, I've seen a lot of people when I was in different countries, a lot of people came from Russia. You know, so you know, even though they're in a state of war right now, I mean, that's the leaders of the country, it's not the people. And you shouldn't really wish harm on people like regular citizens because they're not always for their government. I mean, you see a lot of exploitation coming out. Pretty much every country's a source country.
Mhm.
So There's 200 countries. There's a problem in every one. Some are more than other. Africa is crazy for the amount that comes out of there as well.
I would assume that also every country or group of countries that have undergone or are undergoing a humanitarian crisis, well, including all.
Yeah, wherever there's vulnerability, you're going to find more people trying to exploit that vulnerability, especially Ukraine crossing the border. We're working on something right now, but majority going into Poland, but there's all the other countries around there, Moldova, Hungary, and there's tons. When people are migrating to another country, then they're targets. The women are targets, the children are targets. What happens to them after they're picked up. And also since they're vulnerable, they're looking for that chance. Oh, you got a place to stay for me? Oh, you got food? Oh, I love food. I want to eat. So does my kid. They're going to go with you, trusting you. Even what is it? There's some sort of homes program, nonprofit, that some of these Ukrainians are going to, and they're making passes at them. They're trying to exploit the people that they're helping. So, there was a lot of reports on that, Homes for Humanity, or I forget what it's called, but I was really shocked to hear the problems that were coming out of that.
That's like the next level of cynical.
Yeah, that's even worse. I mean, if you're going to help someone, help them. Don't expect anything in return. But, there's just some sick people in this world, different levels.
Yeah. And speaking of that, yeah, we have two more questions. Is your volunteer program only for US, Canada residents? And what are the biggest challenges you have come across when combating child trafficking?
I find child trafficking is one of the easiest because once it's reported, they really want to help out. And it's one of those critical situations where you can kind of get things done that can't normally be done through different legal means. So I think the problem is that there's so much of it and that we can't get to it all. And even if we get, through one operation, 170, children rescued, there's still, it's not in the tip of the iceberg. It's happening probably over 10 million people globally. So how do you collectively get rid of child exploitation? You have to have every country working on it, every law enforcement. I mean, it's so hidden. The problem as well is there's a lot of familial trafficking. So people in a position of trust, like mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters, they're all in on it. They're all selling these children, or they're getting paid so that they can take pictures and then exchange with other people. I mean, it's such a big problem at home that everybody needs to look at this. I mean, people at school, teachers or guidance counselors or doctors, there has to be better ways for detection in society. So society, everybody's able to detect this and report it.
And if we're talking about society as a whole, if we narrow it down to a specific group of people in the context of today's webinar, what do you think would be the best chance for software vendors? And I mean specific software vendors, like from our world, the kind of products for intelligence, for data analysis, for investigations. What would be the best thing for those kind of organizations to play a good role in aiding people such as yourself and combating those issues?
Well, it's a philanthropy. I mean, a lot of companies like Social Links or like Maltego or like CipherTrace, they all support us. So even if they can't give money, they give their software. So not only do they give us their software, we sometimes ingest data or adapt their software to help fight human trafficking. So we're enhancing their software to be more targeted. So if anybody works for a software company, you know, and you think your application can be used, do you have data, then just reach out. Support us with data, if not money, because, you know, people also got to eat.
Yeah, I think many people would be glad to do that, of course. And yes, so if anybody else has any additional questions for Larry, then please feel free to ask. We've gone past the designated time, but I think many of you would be interested. 110 people left. Yes, and thank you for your presence as well. And just on a quick side note, we're going to be having another webinar quite soon that will be covering the capabilities of the Telegram pack. So, well, Telegram was mentioned several times during today's session. It's something that we provide specifically for law enforcement and government organizations. The most interesting thing about it is how it can be used for social network analysis, community analysis for Telegram. So yeah, people are thanking us and people seem to be leaving. And yeah, great. And Larry, from our side, also thank you very much for this event. Was very, very, I wanted to meet you for a long time already, and my pleasure. And it's great for us to have hosted this event here.
Sounds good. Hopefully we'll get to meet in person someday.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, somebody was asking about an email. Yeah. And Larry, I think you can post yours as well. Here it is.
Yeah, I dropped it a few times. I got like 32 editions on LinkedIn already. 38 now. It's building.
Yeah. So yes, thank you again. This was great. This was awesome. Thank you, Larry. And we'll be glad to see you at our further events and cooperate in general in the future.
For sure.
Have a good day and a good evening, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.